Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Princess State of Mind, the show where we talk about fiction, fairy tales, and the fairer sex. I'm Faith Moore, and today we're going to be talking about happily ever after. So, on Twitter, I asked all of you whether you think it's possible to live happily ever after. I got 233 responses. It looks like 74% of people said yes, they do think it's possible, and 26% said no. Probably this is a function of who follows me and what we all are working on together and talking about fairy tales and happily ever after type things together. But it is encouraging, right, that so many people think it is possible. I think it's possible too. And so today we're going to be talking about how that's possible in the real world, and also answering your relationship questions that you submitted to me in advance, and also you can submit them while we're here live, which I'll tell you how to do in just a minute. But first, I want to just talk a little bit about happily ever after and what that means. I think, as with everything in fairy tales, if you take this literally, you will have a very wrong idea about what that means, and that is a really good way to think that happily ever after is not real, right? If you take anytime you take a fairy tale completely literally, as a lot of, I call them princess critics, right? As a lot of these people who disapprove of fairy tales or want to ban fairy tales or Disney movies from their children's lives, right? A lot of these people are doing that because they're taking these fairy tales so literally. And of course, when you take a fairy tale literally, it makes absolutely no sense. And in fact, it's a little bit scary, right? And not something that you would want to promote. Similarly, right, the idea that someone could be happily ever after taken literally means that like somebody is happy forever, or in this instance, to a couple is happy with one another forever. And nobody is happy all the time, right? So just as with all kinds of other things in fairy tales, happily ever after does not mean that you will now, your marriage is not going well unless you feel happy all the time. That's not what it means at all. A life lived happily ever after is simply a life lived in the knowledge that you and your spouse are partners, and that you have chosen the person to spend your life with who is going to fulfill you and comfort you and provide for you and protect you all the days of your life, right? It doesn't mean that you're not going to be unhappy. Life is full of sorrow and joy, right? Pain and pleasure. All of those things are part of life. And honestly, what is happiness without sadness, right? To compare it to. So it doesn't mean that you have to be happy all the time, but it does mean that you and your spouse are a team. So when you argue, it's not about who's going to win. It's both of you together working toward a common goal, right? It's that knowledge that when life throws you a curveball, and it will, that the two of you are going to work through that together, that you both have a common goal of your relationship being strong, right? And whatever that means, whether it means raising children together or just living together, working together, whatever that means, right? You and your spouse are a partnership or a team, and that the things that you do with one another and to one another are all in service of that, right? So if you find yourself in a marriage and that is happening, right? That's going well for you, then you are living happily ever after, even if sometimes you're incredibly, incredibly sad, right? If the person that you're with is the person who you go to for comfort, who knows how to support you, who is working towards knowing how to support you, then you're living happily ever after. And so it certainly is, I think, possible to live happily ever after in the real world, but it isn't easy. It isn't something that just sort of happens. And it isn't like, oh, now I'm married, it's magically going to happen. I'm going to live happily ever after. It's magical. And if that doesn't happen, then it's not working. My marriage is over. No, happily ever after, a marriage is something that you have to work on all the time, because you can't just expect, as with anything in life, right? You can't just expect it to happen on its own. If you completely ignore and neglect your spouse, you can't expect to then be totally happy and comfortable in your marriage, right? So you have to work all the time to keep your relationship afloat. And those are some of the things we'll be talking about when I'm answering the questions, how to do that. But again, right, if you take it literally and they lived happily ever after, it kind of sounds like it just magically happened and they never had to do anything ever again and they were blissfully happy. And, that's what it's telling you in the fairy tale. But of course, everything in a fairy tale is a symbol or a metaphor or something like that. And you have to read what that means. And what it means for us in real life is that you and your spouse are a partnership working together, and working is the key here. So I asked you guys to send me your relationship questions, your dating questions, your marriage questions, right? And I got some really great questions. And so I'm going to answer them now. And as I do, I hope that we're going to sort of start to get a picture of some things that you can do to try to either find happily ever after or maintain happily ever after in your life, if that's something that you are hoping to do and looking for. If you are watching live and you have a question and you'd like to ask me a relationship question right here and get my live answer, you can do that. All you have to do is type into the comment box at the side of this video. This is only if you're watching live. If you're not watching live, you can comment underneath this video, but I won't be able to read it while I'm here because I'll be doing something else. So if you're watching live, comment in the comment box on the side, but please type in all caps question before your question, because I can see some of you are already sort of chatting over there, and that's awesome, and you should all be chatting, but I am also talking and reading your questions and answering them. So if you're trying to ask a question, just write the word question in big capital letters and then your question in regular letters, and I will do my very best to get to those. I'm going to get to as many questions as I possibly can, but I'm also not going to keep you here for 100 years because I'm not Maleficent. So I will answer your questions. If I can, just write question so I can keep track of all of that. Okay, also I want to say up front, and please listen carefully to this, I am not a psychologist or a relationship expert. I am not a doctor or a therapist or any kind of counselor of any kind. So the answers to these questions are just my opinion. And you should feel free to take them or leave them. They're my advice. They're my opinion given to you freely, but I do not certify them with any kind of official seal, except for the Princess of the Multiverse seal, which is official, but only that. So that being said, I've been happily married for 10 years. I am the product of a fairy tale marriage, if ever there was one. And I read, write, and think about fairy tales all day long. So I have a little bit to say about happily ever after, and that is where my expertise comes from. Speaking of my expertise, it comes in the form of this book, Saving Cinderella: What Feminists Get Wrong About Disney Princesses and How to Set It Right. This is by me, and it is available now on Amazon. You can pick up the paperback, you can get an ebook copy, or you can get an audiobook narrated by me. So if you haven't already, I know there's a bunch of new people here now, so and welcome, but if you haven't picked up a copy of this, please do. And if you have and you enjoyed it and you haven't yet left a review, please do leave a review on Amazon. It really helps me get the book out there, and it helps other people to find it. So that is what I have to say about princesses in a nutshell. But now I'm going to get to your questions. So these are questions that came from Twitter and Facebook. And as I go, if I see questions in the live chat, then I will try to get to those as well. Okay, so without further ado, your relationship questions. So the first question comes from Abigail. She says, is it okay to date or marry someone your family doesn't like? I'm very different from the rest of my family, not in terms of beliefs, but just personality. And so a lot of the guys I like are not their type of person. Okay, so yes, I think it is absolutely fine to date or marry someone that is not the type of person that your family, that would fit into your family. right? So like that could potentially be like your brother or something, right? That is fine. If what you're talking about is they like different movies, their sense of humor is different, his interests are different, right? That kind of thing is totally fine. You are you, and you are attracted to the kinds of things that you're attracted to. And so, your family is not going to marry this person. You are. So you definitely want to find someone that you find appealing. The caveat, of course, is if you are attracted to things that are unhelpful, then you should think carefully, right? Like if you are, if your family wants for you to marry someone who is stable and dependable and is going to take care of you and on all of these things, and what you really like is a bad boy who is not really that interested in you and is going to leave, then I don't think that pursuing that is worthwhile. And the other thing you have to think about is how important is it to you that your future husband, your husband and your parents and family members get along? Like, how important is it to you that you all come home at Christmas time and you're having a lovely, great time? Because if that is really important, then you need to think carefully about whether you want to marry someone who maybe is not going to get along with your parents. So I think on the surface, there isn't actually anything wrong with it, in the sense that, you might be attracted to somebody with different tastes and interests than the people in your family. There's nothing wrong with that. What is a little trickier is if you think they're really just going to be clash with your family and you're really close to your family, or if the things that you're interested in a partner are actually harmful to you in some way. So I think, only you know the answer to that. So you can sort of work that out for yourself, but I don't think it's a definite no, especially if you feel like you're really different from your family. You might want to make a new family with someone else who is more like you. So I think on the surface it's okay, but you need to look sometimes at those sort of deeper issues. Okay. Next question. Any advice for initiating small talk with a woman? This is from Nate. I love this question. Yes. Okay. So here are my do's and don'ts for initiating. So this is assuming that you don't actually know this person yet, or like you just met them and you would like to talk to them, but you're feeling a little nervous because maybe they're very attractive, or they're just a woman and you don't know how to talk to women, or whatever, right? So I'm going to assume this is not like someone you already know quite well, okay? So here are my do's and don'ts, starting with don't, okay? Don't use a pickup line. Okay, don't assume that this is going to be a romantic scenario if all you're trying to do is like meet one another, and just don't use a pickup line. I mean, like ever, like a corny one, right? Don't do that. Don't touch her, right? Don't be like in really close to her and, sort of, that's creepy, right? So don't do that. Don't, again, if this is like you're just meeting and you're just trying to like say hi, you're not trying to ask her out, whatever. Don't comment on her appearance in any way, like her clothes, her hair, even like her smile, her eyes, right? All of that is creepy if you just met and what you're doing is like if this was a guy, you'd be talking about like, hey, how about those, whatever sports team you follow, right? So don't comment on her appearance, and don't like stare at her creepily because you can't think of something to say. If you can't think of something to say, maybe leave, or just say anything at all, like how about the weather, right? Don't just sort of stand there staring, because she'll notice, and that's creepy. So this is probably more helpful, right? Think of what you're going to say before you say it, so that when whatever it is comes out of your mouth, it comes out as clearly and coherently as it can. So right, so you're not just like stuttering. And like if you do end up stuttering by accident, it's fine. It's not going to be the end of the world. You're going to live. But I'm just saying, like, maybe think about what you're going to say before you approach her and say it. Make eye contact. Not like creepy eye contact, but like, look at her when you're speaking. Because when we're nervous, we sort of tend to like look away and look down, but that looks shifty, right? So make good eye contact, and then ask a question, right? And, what do you do for a living? What do you think of this art on the wall? Even like, how about this weather? Really, anything. Because the thing about small talk is it's not actually about the topic. This is something I had to learn because I actually really hate small talk. Right. I always feel like, come on, like get to the point. I don't want to talk about the weather. I don't want to talk about, whatever how this sports team is doing, I just don't care, right? And that makes it hard for me to initiate small talk, because I assume that the person I'm talking to does not want to talk about these things either. But this is the important thing. You're not actually talking about those things. That's not the point of small talk. The point of small talk is just like, hi, I'm a person interested in talking to you. Are you a person interested in talking to me? And it doesn't, as long as you're not talking about something really weird that's off-putting, it doesn't really matter what you're talking about. The point is that you're listening, you're making eye contact, you're responding, you're kind of getting a sense of who she is, she's getting a sense of who you are. So it's okay to say that something about the weather, or something about, like something that just happened to you outside, or, what, like this piece of art, right? It's okay. And you don't have to feel stupid for saying those things, right? So whatever sort of normal, mundane thing you can think of, you say that thing, and then you listen to her response, right? So you make eye contact, you listen, you smile if it's appropriate, right? If what she's saying is appropriate, and then you can ask follow-up questions. People like to talk about themselves, right? And they feel like you're a really, really good listener if all you do is say like, oh, that's so interesting. Like, tell me more about that. And then listen, right? And then, people think like, wow, this person is really listening to me. I really like this person. Okay. So remember, it doesn't matter what you're talking about. It matters how you say it, and how you listen, and how you respond. Okay. And, and just try to act as confident as you can without being overly confident. And what I mean by overly confident is, don't be like asking her out after like hi. Don't be sort of like, all over her, or like using weird pickup lines. Just talk. Women are people. I know we're different from men, but we're people. And we are also wondering sometimes if this is going to become, we might be attracted also, or whatever. But every relationship has to start with this. It has to start with, we don't know each other. We wish we did, but we don't. And so we have to have some kind of conversation, and it has to be something mundane because we don't know each other yet. Okay. So it's fine, right? You just say the normal small talky type things and see how it goes. And let me know. Let me know how it went, right? If you're actually trying to do this, let me know. Okay. All right. So then I got two questions that were kind of similar. So I'm going to read them both. So one person, anonymous, says, it's been 15 years since I was last in a relationship, and despite my efforts to meet someone over the years, my heart just hasn't been in it. I'd like to have someone in my life, but I also don't feel I need anyone. That's the quandary I find myself in. And then someone else, Elizabeth, asked, what would your advice be for someone like me who's kind of not really interested in dating, but not adverse to it? So these are two people who are basically like, I'm not super interested in dating. Is that fine? Like, I would be okay if it happened. Okay. So my answer to this is, if that's literally true, like you don't feel like you want to be dating right now, and you're not interested in finding someone, then that's not a problem, right? Then you just keep living your life. And if it turns out that you meet someone who seems great and you're open to that, then you start dating that person. But if you really don't care whether you're dating or not, then that's fine, right? You just keep doing what you do. And the thing is that the thing that's great about this is that one of the things that I often tell people who are desperate to find someone and can't is stop looking instead, right? Don't be sort of like scouring your dating profiles and your, all of these things and going to weird bars and all of this stuff. Instead, shift your focus on doing the things that you love, things that make you happy. So if you love sports, join a team, join the gym. If you love, reading, join a book club. Do things that are social in topics that you enjoy. And if you are looking for love, usually that will do two things. One, it will put you into contact with people who share your same interests, which is always a good way to look for a potential partner. But also it will help you to sort of calm down and be happy and engaged. And people who are happy and engaged and fulfilled are really attractive, right? It isn't attractive to be like, like on a first date being like, I want to get married and have a bunch of kids. I mean, like, you can talk about what you want, but like, to say to that person, I want to marry you and have a bunch of children if we just met, right? That's not appealing, but it's understandable if you're worried about that, right? So if if you really don't care, then what you should do is you should go out and do the other things in your life that make you happy. And probably by doing that, you will find some people who, you are attracted to, and people will probably be attracted to you. And if that doesn't happen, then, that's another question, and we can talk about that too. But, I sometimes wonder if people who say they're not wanting it are either you're just, you're young, you're doing something else, you're involved in whatever you're involved in, and that's fine, and it will come in time. But sometimes if it's been a long time, I wonder sometimes if you sort of given up hope, and this is your sort of defense mechanism, is to say like, well, it's fine, I don't need anybody in my life. And I think, if secretly deep down you really do want someone in your life, then I would go with what I was just saying. So I think the answer in general to this is find the things that make you feel happy and fulfilled without a partner, if you don't have one. Pursue those things. Make sure that they're things that bring you into contact with other people. So like one of the things that makes me feel happy and fulfilled is writing, but it's very solitary, right? So if that's true, and I was, I'm not, but if I was looking for a potential spouse, I might decide to join one of those workspaces, right, where you go and write, but you're with other people. I would also try to think about what the other thing, personally, I love to sing, so I'm in a choir. Do the things you love as long as they help you be around other people. And I think if you do that, eventually you'll find a way to be with someone if that's what you want. Okay. So this one comes from Eric. On behalf of every guy sadly unsure of how to convey to a woman his romantic interest in her without being off-putting or weird, what, in your opinion, are the biggest don'ts with that, and what are the biggest do's? Okay, so this is a great question. I love this question because, I think when people feel sort of unsure about how to approach someone romantically, they worry that they're going to come off as weird. And sometimes people do come off as weird, and sometimes it stops you from maybe pursuing something that you might want to actually pursue, and which might have been great. So now in this, right, we had the one about small talk. I was assuming that you didn't know someone. Now I'm assuming that you do know this person somewhat, right? Even if it's just like you see them at the coffee shop and say hi, or even like you're at school together or whatever. I'm assuming that you know this person somewhat. You're romantically attracted to them, and you would like to convey that to them so that they know. Okay, so here are the things that you shouldn't do. Again, don't use a pickup line. Okay, like, and what I mean by a pickup line is like one of these sort of silly, like jokey type things, like, I don't even know what they are. Like, you must have fallen from heaven because whatever, right? No, okay, don't use that, because here's the thing. This person might turn you down, and that is something that you have to deal with. It's not a reason to not approach someone, right? That is never a reason, because everything in life is like that, right? If you don't do it, you'll never know. So but you might get turned down, and and because the person might not actually feel that way towards you, and that would be sad and hard to deal with. But you don't want to approach them in some like really overt way, that might be fun if you're already dating, but might be sort of off-putting, right? So don't use a line, okay? Don't plan some sort of big, fancy, romantic gesture. Those are for when you're already together, right? Definitely, please, when you're already together, do plan fancy, big, romantic gestures. Yes, but if you're not already together, don't, because again, right, you don't know what her response is going to be, and you don't want her to be put off. Especially like she might actually be into you, but if you suddenly come up to her with like roses and candles and things like that, and you're not even dating, that might be a little scary and a little stalkery, right? So don't do a big romantic thing at this stage, and don't try to just like kiss her, like because you think maybe she likes you, unless you're like 100% sure that she also feels that way. But this question implies that you're not, right? So don't sort of just go for it if you haven't even had that kind of romantic situation, and don't like go overboard with your like confession of love, right? Don't like confess your like undying love to her when you don't really even know if she likes you or not. Okay. So don't go into sort of romantic comedy land, or like, romance novel land where you're sort of like professing your love because you think that's what you need to do. Okay. Don't do those things. But here is what you should do. Okay. Be totally honest and clear. Okay. Say something like, I was wondering if you'd like to go out with me. Or, would you like to go on a date with me sometime? That's it, right? Clear. You're saying, like, that's very clear that it's not like, would you like to go get, like to the movies as friends? No, you're saying, would you like to go out on a date with me, or would you like to go out sometime, right? And that's it, right? Just say that. That's a question that you can ask. It is very scary because as opposed to a pickup line, which could be a joke, right? Or something a little bit more vague, like, hey, do you want to go watch a movie, right? Those things you can back out of. And if she's like, oh, no, then you can be like, oh yeah, no, totally, it's fine, right? This is very clear. You're saying that you are interested in this person, but that's what we need to do with each other. We need to be clear and honest, right? So say something very clear about what you're asking. Then if she says yes, have something in mind that you should do and make it sort of casual. Like, you want to go get dinner and watch a movie, or you want to go have coffee, or do you want to go for a walk in the park, right? Again, not something huge and like, do you want to, come away with me to, a castle in Provence, right? So, just something really simple, but have that in mind, because if she says yes, then you don't want to be like, great, well, I'll get back to you. No, you want to say like, okay, how about this on this day and time? And you talk about that together, right? When you're talking, again, make eye contact, speak clearly, don't like speak super fast if you can help it. I can't help it. I speak super fast, sorry. But, try to speak clearly and make eye contact. When you approach her, you should look presentable, but you shouldn't be like overly fancy. Like if you normally wear jeans and a t-shirt, don't show up in a suit. But do take a shower and comb your hair, brush your teeth, that kind of thing. So just look presentable. And the last thing is you take no for an answer. So if you say something really clear like that, would you like to go out on a date sometime? And she says no, then it's no. And, maybe, later down the line, she might come back and say, actually, now I am interested in you or whatever. But if she says no, thank you, then it's scary and creepy to sort of try to push the point, say like, okay, thanks anyway, have a great day. And then leave because you're embarrassed and sad. Right. So don't make it any more awkward. And she's embarrassed too. So don't make it any more awkward. Just say like, okay, never mind. I guess I'll see you around. Thanks so much. Bye. And then go. And then, and then you're sad. And that's something that we have to deal with in life. We're sad. Right. We happily ever after is not really happily. It just means fulfilled. Right. So sometimes in life we're sad and we move on. So but I think, that's really it, is sort of like, approach in a calm and casual way, ask a very clear question that really clearly implies that you're asking her out on a date. Have a date in mind, like have a thing that you're going to ask her to go do with you in mind, and just see what happens. And then if she says no, say thanks and walk away, and I don't know, call up a friend and go do something to distract yourself, right? We ask people out and sometimes they say no and sometimes they say yes. And if she says no, then she wasn't the right person for you. Okay. So hopefully that helps. Okay. This is another anonymous one, and it's a marriage one. So now we're beyond the realm of dating. We're married. What are some ideas you have about a married couple trying to keep the flame going? With kids and jobs, it's hard to plan with everything else going on, especially since I have a erratic schedule. She feels like they keep going separate. He or she feels like they keep going separate ways. Or we're tired. We don't know what to do. We don't have a big budget, so we can't go on dates very often, maybe once every 3 to 6 months. So how do we keep this live? Okay, I love this question because, yeah, like when you are married, it feels like, okay, like the happily ever after is starting, so we don't really have to do anything. And then suddenly you haven't said more than like who's picking up the kids from school in weeks, and you don't even know like you haven't talked to each other in forever. And this question is great because people are always saying like you have to go on date nights, you have to go, but like it's true, some people really can't afford I mean, a babysitter is really expensive, and then where are you going on a date? That's expensive too, right? And I actually kind of hate the idea of date night because it feels like there's this like time set aside to date each other, and it's like you're not dating, you're married, and every day is supposed to be sort of like a wonderful romantic situation together, even though sometimes it looks like changing diapers and falling into bed totally exhausted. You're always in this romantic partnership with your spouse. So this idea of like the date night and we'll wait for the date night is, I don't think it's a great idea. I think you should go out when you can with your husband or wife, and you totally should do that. And you should have time away from your children. You and your partner are in a relationship together that isn't just being parents to children. And that is important to maintain. But I think there are ways to maintain it that are not like date night. Okay. So, but it has to do with scheduling. Okay. So you should plan, I think, at least one night a week where after the kids are in bed, you are committed to spending time with each other, doing something that maybe you would have done before you had kids or whatever, but in your home. Like, my husband and I do crossword puzzles together because we're nerdy like that. But like do a crossword together, we also play board games because we're nerdy like that. But, play a board game, do a crossword puzzle, talk about, have just a chat, talk about, the news or maybe not the news or, something that you read or did. You can watch TV together, but make sure that then you talk about what you watched. So it's not just like vegging out together because that's not really together time, but really like make that in your schedule, put it on your calendar. Like Wednesdays are the day that we don't go off into our own separate rooms and watch our own separate shows, or that we don't take care of work or, whatever. Do that, right? If you have to, schedule sex. I know that sounds really creepy and weird, and maybe you don't have to do that. And, I'm not going to say like who has to do that, who doesn't have to do that. But if you're not having sex and you're married, you should be, right? That's like an important and fulfilling part of your relationship, unless there is some physical reason why you can't do that. So if it's not happening because you're so tired or you're busy or whatever, put that on the calendar too. Sorry. Like, I know that's weird, but really, I mean, it should be happening. So, if it has to be scheduled, it has to be scheduled, right? The other thing is like prioritize your relationship. So if you're having a conversation with your spouse and your kids are there and they're like, mom, dad, teach them, and this is really hard and it's like a lifelong thing to teach them, but teach them that they're interrupting. I think so often we're sort of like, oh, what, because like they're so annoying sometimes. We love our children, right? But like sometimes they're like trying, and their strategies for getting your attention are very, they're good. They're good strategies, right? But teach your children that no, like mom and dad are having a conversation because we are in a relationship together and you are waiting. Right. And then when we're done, well, yes, what do you want to say? But you and your spouse are still in a romantic relationship, even though you've added children. So you have a relationship that is like inaccessible to your children. It should be, right? So, make that a priority, right? Teach your children by showing them that you sometimes talk to your husband or wife and they're not allowed, like, when I put my kid to bed, if he wants to know, like, why are you leaving me here? I say, like, because, mommy and daddy are going to spend some time together because, he's my husband, and that's something that happens without you. Right. So it's okay to have that be a part of your family dynamic. Do the date nights when you can. Because it's fun and it's good to be sort of out together and kind of remembering what that feels like. But, if you can only do them every 3 months, do them every 3 months. I mean, that's fine. And like, this is also probably unpopular, but like, try to sort of spend some time on your appearance. Like, I don't mean like, put on a whole face of makeup and, ball gown every day unless you want to. But this goes for guys too. Like, you part of your relationship is physical attraction, and you don't want to always be sort of slumping around. So I just mean, really honestly, it could be like brush your hair, brush your teeth, put on different clothes each day, that kind of thing, right? So that, like, you remember that this is part of your relationship. And just notice each other, talk to each other, notice each other, give each other compliments, send each other nice messages, text messages throughout the day, that kind of thing. Like, just remember that, like, this is happily ever after. You have to work on it. You have to work on it. It doesn't happen by itself. And those are the things that you have to do, both of you, to just remember that you love each other and you're in a romantic relationship. It doesn't end. Your work doesn't end after you got them, right? So, just schedule the things that you need to schedule, and, take care of the things that you need to take care of. And hopefully that helps. Okay, last question. And I think I got one other question up here about how my husband and I met. So I can end with that. And remember, if you have a question, since we're coming to the end here, if you do have a question and you want to ask it, write question in big capital letters in the comment box, and ask the question and I'll answer it. Okay, but this is the last one that I got from Twitter, from Eric. Is it healthy to lay out for yourself the characteristics you're looking for in a significant other, like your type? What kind of details should they be, and how early in life can a person start forming that picture? Okay, so the answer is yes, with some caveats. So in a broad stroke sense, yes, but if these characteristics are too specific, then no. So let me talk about this. So it's totally fine and a very good idea to have a sense of the values that your future partner should have. So, like, for example, if you meet a girl and she tells you that she never wants to get married and she never wants to have children, and you are actually looking for someone to marry and have a family with, then it isn't worth getting involved with that person, because they're never going to do that, right? So it's just going to be sort of heartache for you down the line, right? So similarly, if you are, if you are pro life and she says, like, if I get pregnant, I'm going to have an abortion because I don't want children or something, like those kinds of like really important kind of like make or break things are things that you should know beforehand, because then you won't enter into a relationship with someone who isn't going to be able to be the person that you need them to be. If you don't have that in your head and it happens, like, then you deal with it, right? You don't have to have everything figured out when you're super young or whatever, right? But, if you're thinking about that, then it's the values, the relationship values, that are the most important thing. So, but if your list is like, I would like her to be 5'8", blonde, great smile, like whatever, then even like, great sense of humor, all of that stuff, right? Those aren't things that aren't so useful, because you're going to totally rule out people who might actually be the perfect people for you, because the way that we fall in love doesn't actually have anything to do with logic. So, like if you think that you want someone who's like, very studious and serious, and, ambitious, and then you fall in love with someone who's sort of like humorous and carefree, there's nothing wrong with that. And you shouldn't rule that out. So those things shouldn't really be on your list. The things that are on your list are things that would sort of break your relationship if you found them out later on. Because attraction goes beyond your list. It goes beyond your list, even your values list, right? You can be attracted to anyone at all, and it can surprise you. But that means that if you're attracted to someone who actually would make you miserable, and that is something that happens, right? Then you need to, it's good to have a list of like, no, that would make me miserable. I should not engage in a relationship with this person. But if it's like, wow, I thought I was gonna marry a brunette, but she's blonde. Like, that doesn't matter, right? That's fine. And the last part of the question was how young is it fine? I mean, I think if you're thinking about it, then that's how young, right? I mean, like, I don't. I think people meet their spouse young, old, in the middle. Like, that's just something that is up to you. So if you're already asking this question and thinking about it, then it's fine to be thinking about it. And I don't think you need to, I don't think you need to, like, sow your wild oats or whatever. Like, I don't think that people have to kind of like have a bajillion relationships before they find the one. Like, you might find that person on your first relationship or your 50th relationship. That's just life. Right? So if you're thinking about it, then think about it, but don't limit yourself too much by things that don't matter. Okay. I'm getting some questions. All right. Rachel says, is it difficult to still be romantic and have fun as a married couple after having a child? Like, how tired are you after your first kid? Okay. Yeah, good question. Really, really, really tired. Really tired. I once asked my husband after we had our kid if you can die from being tired. That's how tired I was, right? We were sitting in the middle of the night in the living room. I had my kid. He was like a month old or something. And my husband was there, and he was there to keep me awake so that I didn't drop the baby while I was trying to feed him, right? And I said, like, wow, can you die from being this tired? And he said, I don't know. The answer is no, you can't die from tired. You just fall asleep. But so I don't know if by be romantic you mean like have sex or not, but for a while after you have a kid, it's all about that. It's all about, like, is the baby fed? Is the baby sleeping? Is the baby needing a diaper change? And when am I sleeping? And, how is that happening? And, you're just in this sort of fog. But the thing that happens between you and your partner, your spouse during that time, is that you grow in love with that person because you're watching them become a parent. So, and you fall, I mean, this is how it should be, right? I mean, you fall in love with that person because you're seeing them do something that you've never seen them do before that's so important to you, right? So even though, like, all my husband and I could do, or all you can sort of do with your husband is, like, do the baby things and then sleep, and then do more baby things and then sleep, for a couple months, you're still sort of falling in love with your partner all over again because they are doing this amazing thing. They're transforming before your eyes into a new kind of person, a parent, right? A father, a mother. And that's romantic too. But it only is romantic if you think of it that way, because, sometimes you're covered in vomit, and sometimes you're covered in pee, hopefully not yours, but, sometimes yours. So, like, you that doesn't seem very romantic, and maybe you're not, like, having date night or whatever, but it is romantic to watch your partner become a parent. And I think that's how you have to think about it for a couple months. And then, you kind of figure it all out. And then you're still really, really tired, but the really, really tired becomes normal. Like, I'm just tired all the time, and that's just normal. That's my normal. So, then it becomes normal, and then you go back to some sense of who you are and what your life is, right? So I think it's about sort of like figuring out what it is that you are learning about your partner and loving that in that moment. Okay, and I have another one. Do you think that this is from Jake, do you think that there is a general time frame on dating such that after a certain point you are just wasting your time and should either move on or get married? Yes, I do think that, especially if you're not, like, teenagers. Particularly for guys, right? Like, guys need to be aware that the woman that they're dating is on a clock. So she, like, a biological clock. So if she thinks that you're going to propose to her, and she's waiting, but you're, like, not really into it or whatever, then, like, you need to let her go so she can find someone else to marry and have kids with. Not that, like, everybody is obsessed with having children, but, if you're thinking of marrying someone, that's probably on your radar. So if you are a guy and you're not sure if you want to marry this person, you need to try to, and it's been, I would say, like, a year, you should try to figure that out. A year if you're both, like, adults, like, you're out of college, etc., right? So I think, women too, like guys want to go get married and have families too. And so I think, I think if you are both adults and you've been dating for a year and you haven't even really talked about whether you want to get married, I think that you should have that conversation. And, and if it's like, well, I'm in, school for one more year and for some reason, I mean, to me, it's sort of like there aren't very many reasons why you shouldn't get married. There are some reasons why you might want to wait to have a kid. Like, for example, if you're not going to be in the same place. But I think, yeah, you should not string people along, and you especially should have the conversation, right? If you've been dating for a while, you should talk about where is this going and what do we want? And I think that's just respectful to your partner. So that is what I think. I think I've got all the questions, except I remember somebody up at the top asked how I met my husband. So I will end with that. It is nowhere near as awesome a story as how my parents met. So you should try to track that down. But we met on the first day of college. I said, we were going around saying like, what do you want to be when you grow up or whatever? And I said I wanted to be a writer. And he was starting a campus radio show, like a comedy show, like a sketch comedy show. And he asked me if I wanted to join it. And I did. And we were friends for a long time. And then we were dating, and then we got married. Since we met so young, we dated for a long time before we got married. And we have been married for 10 years this past August. So, is there such a thing as living happily ever after? Yes. Do you have to work at it? Yes. Is it really hard? Yes. Is it possible? Yes. All of those things. Yes. I hope I answered your questions. I hope that was helpful. Remember that you can always find me on Twitter at Faith K. Moore or on Facebook at Disney Princess Addict. And, you can tell me if what I said was helpful. You can tell me if it wasn't helpful. And we can do more shows like this. But I think the person for you is out there. There might be more than one person that you would be happy that you could live happily ever after with. And I think if you want to find that person, you will at some point. So please follow me. As I always say, like my life as a mom, as a stay-at-home mom and a freelance writer and editor, my schedule is never the same from moment to moment or week to week. But I'm hoping to do another show next Friday, probably at 10 a.m. instead of 11. And I'm thinking of doing it on growing up and parenting and maybe school questions and those kinds of things. But please follow me and subscribe to this channel so that you get all of that information and you know when to tune in next. Also, again, don't forget to pick up my book, Saving Cinderella, What Feminists Get Wrong About Disney Princesses and How to Set It Right, which is available on Amazon in paperback, ebook, and audiobook. Thank you so much for watching and for being a part of this. This has been Princess State of Mind. I'm Faith Moore, and I'm looking forward to talking to you again, hopefully next week. And of course, on Twitter and everywhere else that we are. And you can find my website is www.faithkmore.com. I blog there, and everything you need to know ever is there. So check that out too. See you next time. Bye.